All right, let's get right into it. We're not going to talk about how to get rich today. That's a whole other conversation. We're going to tackle something way, way harder: how to stop being poor. Now, most people think poverty is just not having enough money, but that's not it at all. It's more like a physical force, a gravitational pull that is designed from the ground up to keep you stuck. So, why is it so incredibly hard to break free? You feel like you're doing everything you're supposed to. You work extra hours, you try to squirrel away a few dollars, and then, bam, life happens. The car needs a new transmission, the rent gets hiked, and you're slammed right back to square one, only now you're more exhausted than ever before. So, what is going on? Well, the answer isn't about willpower or pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And you won't find it in most finance books. Believe it or not, the answer is in physics, specifically rocket science. The problem isn't your effort. The problem is the force you're fighting against. Think about it like this. For a rocket to actually get into space, it has to hit a very specific speed. It's called escape velocity. Now, if that rocket burns 99% of its fuel, but only reaches 99% of that speed, does it get 99% of the way to the moon? No. It falls all the way back to Earth and crashes into a fireball. Poverty has its own escape velocity, and it works the exact same way. And this is the part so many of us miss. Working a little harder, saving a little more, that's linear effort. In the physics of poverty, linear effort gets you absolutely nowhere. You need an exponential push, a massive, focused, overwhelming burst of energy to finally, once and for all, break free from that gravitational pull. So if we're going to build that rocket engine, we first have to understand what we're really up against. There are 5 specific gravitational forces that create this poverty trap. Let's break them down one by one. Force number 1 is called the scarcity tax. And no, this isn't a tax from the government. It's a tax on your mind. When you are constantly, day in and day out, worried about how you're going to pay rent or buy groceries, your brain simply doesn't have the bandwidth to think about the future. You're trapped in survival mode. And the cost of this tax is just, wow, it's staggering. Research has actually shown that severe financial stress lowers your effective IQ by about 13 points. To put that in perspective, that's the same cognitive hit as losing an entire night of sleep. So you're trying to solve your life's most complex problems while functioning with a sleep-deprived brain. How can you possibly win? This mental tax leads directly to something called the Vimes boots theory. It goes like this. A rich man can afford a great pair of $50 boots that'll last him 10 years. A poor man can only afford the flimsy $10 boots, which fall apart in a year. So, over that decade, the poor man spends $100, double what the rich man spent, and he had cold, wet feet the whole time. It is literally more expensive to be poor. Now, force number 2 builds right on top of that. It's called the dopamine trap. When your life is a constant, stressful grind, your brain is just screaming for any kind of relief. And buying something, that new phone, a fancy meal, it gives you a quick hit of a pleasure chemical called dopamine. For just a moment, the pain goes away. And let's be super clear, this isn't a character flaw, it's a biological urge. It's self-medication. And this right here reveals a fundamental fork in the road when it comes to mindset. When you're trapped, you often see money as a tool to buy temporary pleasure, just to escape the pain of the present. The rich, on the other hand, see money as a tool to buy long-term freedom. Freedom from a boss you hate, freedom from debt, freedom to control your own time. The third force is one that society tells us is the only way to live. It's the linear income trap. We're all taught to trade our time for money. Go to a job, get a paycheck. Simple, right? But there's a fatal flaw. You only have 24 hours in a day. That means there's a hard mathematical ceiling on how much you can ever earn. It's a game that is rigged against you from the start. And to make it even worse, while your income is capped, your expenses are not. The silent killer is inflation. The price of gas, food, rent, it all goes up every year. But your paycheck rarely keeps up. You're basically trying to run up an escalator that's moving down. And every year, that escalator gets a little bit faster. You have to run harder and harder just to stay in the same place. Okay, this next one is one of the toughest to break. It's called social gravity. You've probably heard of the crab bucket effect, right? You put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, and if one tries to crawl out, the others will literally reach up and pull it back down. People can be like that too. And it's not because they're evil. It's because your attempt to escape is a painful mirror that highlights their own captivity. It all boils down to that famous quote,
If your 5 closest friends are broke, pessimistic, and have zero ambition, guess what? Your brain is wired to make you the 6th. Their mindset, their habits, their reality, it all becomes your default setting.
And that brings us to the 5th and final force. And honestly, this is the most powerful one of all. Let's call it the compound void. Einstein called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. He said, "He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. There is no middle ground." If you have credit card debt, that is compound interest working against you, making you poor every single second, even while you sleep.
Okay, so that's the diagnosis. Those are the 5 forces pinning you down. It sounds bleak, I know, but here's the good news. For every single one of these forces, there is a counter move, an engineering solution. Now, let's talk about how to build the engine for your escape.
So to fight that scarcity tax, your very first mission is not to get rich. It's to build a tiny emergency buffer. Just $500, maybe $1,000. This money's only job is to buy back your brain. Because when a flat tire is a simple inconvenience instead of a life-shattering catastrophe, you get those 13 IQ points back. And then you can actually start thinking long-term. To break the dopamine trap, you have to go on a detox. You enter what's called monk mode. For a few months, you cut out all non-essential spending, all of it. The goal is to retrain your brain to stop chasing pleasure from buying liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket, and start getting a kick out of acquiring assets, things that put money in your pocket. Now, to escape the linear income trap, you stop selling time and start selling value. You do this by building a skill stack. The idea isn't to be the best in the world at one thing, it's to be pretty good at 2 or 3 unrelated things. A plumber who also learns about digital marketing is no longer just a plumber. They're a business owner who can generate their own leads. They become rare, and the economy pays a premium for rarity. And how do you deal with social gravity? You have to intentionally build a new peer group, virtually. You can't always change your neighbors, but you can change who you listen to. You can read books by the greatest minds in history. You can listen to podcasts from the world's best entrepreneurs. You can choose to make them your new 5 people. You build a better neighborhood right inside your own head. So we've got the components. We have the engineering solutions for each of the 5 forces. Now it's time to assemble the engine and initiate the launch sequence. The launch has 3 stages. Stage 1, survival. You use monk mode to aggressively pay off every dime of high-interest debt. Get on the right side of the compound interest equation. Stage 2, accumulation. You start small, maybe just $10 a day, automatically invested into an asset like a low-cost index fund. And Stage 3, freedom. This is the goal. This is the moment when the money your assets generate is enough to cover your basic living expenses. That is escape velocity. And if you think $10 a day sounds pointless, just look at this. This is the power of compounding. For the first few years, it's going to feel pathetic. You'll barely notice a thing, but you have to trust the math. That tiny, insignificant snowball, given enough time, becomes an unstoppable avalanche. This is what it looks like when the 8th wonder of the world is working for you. In the end, these 5 forces, these chains, they're real. The physics are real. But the cage isn't actually locked. You have the blueprint now. You know how the trap is built, and you have the engineering schematics to build an engine for escape. The map is in your hands. So the final question isn't about what you know, it's about what you'll do. The door has always been open. Do you have the courage to walk out?